I call Clayton Mitchell.
Speaker, rise on behalf of New Zealand First to take a split call with Fletcher Tabato to talk about the budget. And I think I'll start by saying the difference between God and Simon Bridges, or what is the difference between God and Simon O'Connor, or should I say, is that God doesn't think that he is Simon O'Connor. And he certainly did suck the life out of this room in the last few minutes. It's a little bit towards the end of our budget debates, and so everybody's feeling a little bit tired, but I fear to say that just about drowned us in sleep and woeful sort of thoughts. Certainly a debate that would come up later in time. We'd certainly love to have it with you with regards to the right to die. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I thought I'd start also by saying I'd come out with something thought-provoking and provocative with regards to the budget, because we've heard so much over the last a week or so of listening to everybody, and the only thing that sort of comes out remotely profound or provocative that I could think of was just womp, 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 womp. I think this budget has failed just about in every sense, and certainly of a scale of of a decent scale. I will actually give this budget a 10, Mr. Speaker, out of 40. I think there's been so much misplaced with this budget, and it's been irresponsible of the government to take away the future of New Zealanders by taking away the $1,000 Kickstart program, and they've all got their heads down now pretending not to be interested, and to give it to the interest. Oh, Todd Barclay's interested again. Todd, you're like a sneeze waiting for a mouth to shoot out of. Look, at the end of the day, this budget is giving the $25 is the one good thing that I think this government has done. It's certainly a step in the right direction. But I would like to spend my time discussing the emergency services, which didn't make a feature in this budget. And I think everybody in this House would agree that they add probably some of the best value to our communities, from Cape Reinga through to Stewart Island. And those are the volunteer fire service, the people that are actually completely underfunded with their role. And their roles over the past several decades have been changing more and more, for the simple fact that there is less funding available, and they're actually going on community support and fundraising measures to actually be able to give that support to their communities. And I'm talking about the likes of the the ambulance services, which again are suffering from a lack of funding, and the fire services that are actually providing a lot of that care. Around the country at the moment, Mr. Speaker, we are talking to the voluntary fire service, the rural fire services, who are going out there and shaking the bucket, to use the terminology, to gain funding for their organisations. One outfit in the north had to shake the bucket because they didn't have a defibrillator, and they were regularly being called out to first aid response, and they need to get that support by this government and this budget, which hasn't made a feature. It's certainly interesting to know, Mr. Speaker, also with regards to the lack of funding, that since 1994, when the current situation with the way the fire service is funded, which is of course through the fire service levy, which is through your insurances, has been looked at new funding arrangements 16 times. And 16 times in 21 years, and most of those reviews have come out and said that the current way that we are funding our fire service is inadequate. It's not fit for purpose. Something that this government keeps talking about with their budget, that this budget is fit for purpose, but whose purpose is it fit for? We need to seriously get back to our grassroots. And something else I'd like to touch on is the number of volunteer fire people that we've got. Currently in the country, we've got 1,700 career firefighters out there doing a fantastic job. Many of them are my friends, and I think as far as having the high regard within the community, those fire service providers are number one. But I've got 5 minutes go so fast, I better not waste any time. And I'd like to tie this into Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, which is another very important organisation around the country, which again has got no funding in this budget. Now, to recognise Surf Lifesaving New Zealand as an official emergency service provider and come under the umbrella of our emergency service providers, considering that they perform some 350 search and rescues around the country, several thousand life-performing exercises, we need to look at the search and rescue, our fire service and our Surf Lifesaving New Zealand to be put into a package that this government supports and looks after in a much better way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll hand you over to Fletcher Tabato.
I call Fletcher Tabato, 5-minute call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.